right, what if we have markup and selling price and we are left and have to find the cost of an item? Okay, well, we would start by using this formula. Again, we know the markup on an item is whatever they're selling it for minus the cost that what it cost them to get the item in the first place. So let's use that formula. Okay, it says a can of tennis balls has a 65% markup rate based on the cost. Mel's Sporting Goods sells a can of tennis balls for $4.35. What is the cost to the nearest cents? Now we're going to have to use some algebra here, all right? Because they didn't give us the actual dollar amount of that markup. They just said it's 65% of the cost. And we don't know what the cost is. So we have two things we don't know. We do know, however, that the markup is our percent of markup times the cost. So we can replace this part here. It's 65%. To use that, we have to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So what we have is 0.65. I'm going to make C the costs. Okay, if we knew the cost, that's how we would find our markup, is 0.65 times that cost. We don't know it, so we just put a letter in its place. Now that's equal to the selling price. Did they give us that at least? Yes, it says they sell a can of tennis balls for $4.35. So that's equal to $4.35 minus the cost. Do we know the cost? No, but we decided we would just call the cost C. Now we have an algebra problem. We used our formula to set up an algebra problem, and now we will solve that problem to find our cost. We need the C's on the same side. So this was a subtracting C. We do the opposite and add C. And whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Okay, what does that do for me? It leaves me with $4.35 on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, this is a 1C. 1 plus 0.65 is 1.65 C. Be very careful with that. And we're still solving for C here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is say, well, we have 1.65 times C. To get rid of that 1.65, we do the opposite of multiplying by 1.65, and we divide. Okay, so we get the cost is 4.35 divided by 1.65. And so we come up with a cost of $2.64. Wanted it rounded just to the nearest cent, and what I came up with was 2.63636. Again, cents is 2 numbers after the decimal, and this 6 made my 3 round up to a 4. So my cost was $2.64. Okay. Another way you can do this problem, if you're looking for kind of a way that you don't have to worry about as much about the algebra, is notice that every time we do this, we're going to have this 1C over here. So what you can do is change your markup rate to a decimal. Okay, so again, our markup rate was 65%. Change it to a decimal, add 1, and divide your selling price by that. Okay, so what you would do is take your selling price divided by 1 plus the markup rate. Okay, so that is another way. If you prefer just having a formula that does the work for you, this would be your formula. The selling price, to find the cost, if you don't know the cost, take the selling price divided by 1 plus the markup rate. And this does have to be the decimal markup rate and not as a percent. Okay, so I just kind of took you through both ways to do that. This next example, again, I'll try to do, let's see. At the outdoor market, Craig Wing sells string beans. He sells them for $1.55 a pound. Okay, so that's my selling price. The beans cost 82 cents a pound to grow. What's the markup rate based on cost? Well, here they've taken us back to where we came from. Okay, I think this question may be in the wrong batch, but we'll go through it. We're supposed to find the markup rate. So the first thing we're going to do is find the markup, which is the selling price, $1.55, minus the cost of 82 cents. That gives me 73 cents. So my markup, the amount they added to their cost, was 73 cents. Now we can find the markup rate, which is the markup, 73 cents, divided by the cost. Again, be very careful. Make sure you use the cost and not the selling price, because this is the markup rate based on the cost. And we get 0.8902. It wants it to the nearest tenth of a percent. We move the decimal 2 places to the right to change that to a percent. And in this case, we just get 89.0%. Okay, so again, this question was a little out of place. So let's get back on our track of finding costs. Okay, it says a pair of earrings was marked up 115%. The selling price is $84.32. What is the markup to the nearest cent? And their hint is to first find the cost. Okay, so we do have to find cost first, and we have two different ways we can do that. So I'm going to split the screen and I'll do both ways. The first way is to use this formula here. Now our markup is 115% of the cost. We need to change that percent to a decimal. So move the decimal over 2 places, which puts us at 1.15 times the cost C. That should equal the selling price, $84.32, minus the cost, which again I don't know, so I call it C. So this is the first way. You can write out the full algebraic formula and solve for C, and then once we have C, we'll use that to answer our question. So the way we would solve this from here is, again, we're solving for C, so we need the C's on the same side. So I would add C to both sides to move it over. That would give me, this is a 1C, so 1 plus 1.15 is 2.15C, and that's equal to $84.32. We have to continue solving. We have 2.15 times C, so to solve we're going to do the opposite of multiplying by 2.15, which is to divide by 2.15. We do that on both sides. So over here we end up with $84.32 divided by $2.15, and I get $39.22 when I round to the nearest cent. That is my cost. Okay, now that I have the cost, I can find the markup. The markup is the selling price minus the cost. How much did they add to the price of that item? Okay, so my markup to answer my question is going to be whatever, $84.32 minus $39.22. This was the selling price, and then the cost that we found. When we do that, we get $45.10 for the markup. That's one way you can do this problem. You use the formula here, you put in C's for the costs, and you solve from there. The other thing that you can use is the little formula that I showed you. You can take the selling price, which is basically what we ended up doing here, divided by 1 plus the markup rate. And all that is, then that will give you the cost. And all that is just taking what we did on this side and turning it into a formula. So again, what I would do is take my markup rate, change it to a decimal, so I get 1.15, and add 1 to it. Okay, so this would be 1 plus 1.15, and on the top I would have my selling price of $84.32. Okay, so my cost would be $84.32 divided by 1 plus 1.15 is 2.15. And notice we have exactly the same thing we had going on the other side. All you're doing is avoiding plugging in C's. Okay, we still get a cost of $39.22. We would still find our markup the same way. Okay, again, this is our cost. We would find the markup by taking the selling price of $84.32 minus the cost we found of $39.22, and you're still going to get $45.10. Okay, so that gives you both options there. You've seen them both twice. You go ahead and make the decision what you would rather use. This formula here with C's plugged in, or this formula here that was created. The cost is the selling price divided by 1 plus the markup rate. Hey, here's another example for us to practice those skills. Dawn Fishing sells fishing lures for $245 after marking them up 260% based on the cost. What is the cost of each lure to the nearest cent? Okay, so you can use either method. Once again, either method is going to work. Let's say you wanted to use instead the formula that was created from that the cost is the selling price. I'll do that method first this time, and then we'll do the other method. You only have to do one of them. I'm just showing you both. Okay, so the first method I'm going to use is that formula. The cost is equal to the selling price, I'm just abbreviating, divided by 1 plus the markup rate. You can even read that. So what's our markup rate? It's 260%. We're supposed to move the decimal 2 places to the left, so it's 2.6. Add 1 to that. So on the bottom, 2.6 plus 1 would be 3.6. On the top, we put our selling price of $2.45, and we go ahead and divide. Again, put the top number in first, 2.45, then divide, and then 3.6. I get 0.68. So that would be the nearest cent. 68 cents is the cost of each lure. If you can go ahead and go to the next problem, if that's the method you used. If you would like to use the other method, which is to use this formula, again, we start by changing our markup rate to a decimal of 2.6. So our markup is 2.6 times whatever the cost is. The selling price is $2.45 minus the cost. Again, we call that C because we don't know what the cost is. So that is our equation, and we go and solve that equation. Again, 2 methods to get exactly the same answer. So just pick one and use it. Here you have to add C to both sides to get C by itself. That gives me 3.6C. 2.6 plus 1 is 3.6 equals 245. Divide both sides by 3.6 to solve. And again, you get 68 cents as your answer. So again, same answer either way. You make the choice. Which one works best for you?